Good day, Amherstburg. It's Ron Giofu from the Rivertown Times, back on the airwaves of 107.9 FM CKBG, the Berg, for the Rivertown Times Weekend Review. I'm flying solo this week. Laura and Dominic are celebrating their anniversary out in Vegas. And Laura will be back next week. Unless she wins a pile of money, then you might be stuck with me flying solo for a while. But I do anticipate her return next week. And turning our attention to the paper this week, quite a lot packed into a 16-page paper, so I'll get right to it. Our front page story is the recognition banquet held by the Amherstburg Fire Department. That was held last Friday night at the Coachwood Golf and Country Club out in McGregor. And long service awards were presented to several firefighters, but honored during the night were 7 retiring or retired firefighters that hung up their boots over the last year or so. Those include Captain Tom Moran, Captain B.J. Wilder, Captain Adam Mann, Captain Dave Varney, Captain Nick Reno, Captain Bill Scott, and firefighter B.J. Wiley. Congratulations to all involved. They were some moments that kind of tugged at your heartstrings. Other times it was a bit more lighthearted. But it was a good night all around at Coachwood at the Amherstburg Fire Department recognition banquet. That's again on front page of this week's RTT. It's the lead story on our website, rivertowntimes.com. Congratulations to all involved, and congratulations to all those who organized the banquet last Friday night. And it was a good time, and again, congratulations to all the firefighters. And it's one of those jobs that you hope you don't need. You don't need them to come out, but you're certainly glad they're there when they do come out. They're heroes within our community. So thanks to our fire department, thanks to those who retired, and congratulations to them, and to the Long Service Awards. And again, full details on page 1 of this week's issue of the Rivertown Times. The Amherstburg Celebrity Cookbook has hit the streets. It's already a limited edition. I mean, if you haven't got your copy yet, you might want to head to a participating store or business that's carrying them. They printed 300, and they've sold a lot of them. The launch was last Wednesday night at GL Heritage Brewing Company out on Howard Avenue. Well attended, and of course all proceeds go to the Amherstburg Food and Fellowship Mission. So great job by Annie Hall, Jill Canwisher, Jane Berthium, and the team at the mission. And it's got a photo of Tim McAllister on the front, and if you haven't seen it, you probably want to. It's a pretty neat photo of Tim. It's kind of I've taken several photos of Tim over the years. I haven't quite taken one quite like this, so you might want to pick up your cookbook while supplies last. And again, this is I think it took about a year, they told me, for to get the cookbook together. It's not just recipes, it's stories from around the community and various different people in the community. Here's a little cheap plug. Laura and I are both in the cookbook, and as you might guess, it's more Laura's recipe than it is mine. I don't cook very much, as some of you might know. My idea for recipes, I think I mentioned on the air before, it's directions to a local drive-thru. Anyways, so pick that up, and there's a lot more than just Laura and I. It's quite a large, thick cookbook. It's $20. The list of locations is in the paper this week. I believe it's on page 2 of this week's issue of the RTT. You can find out where to get it. I know the Marsh Collection Society across from our office has it, and several other locations around Amherstburg carries the Amherstburg Celebrity Cookbook. And again, all proceeds go to the Amherstburg Food and Fellowship Mission. Speaking of the mission, they're having their AGM tomorrow night, that being Thursday, and I'll be there to cover that. Again, always a good time to donate to various different charitable causes, the mission included. Yesterday was a very special day, especially for one local Amherstburg lady. Barbara Robinson celebrated her 100th birthday. I was out on Sunday afternoon, and I know Mayor Michael Prue was there to give her a plaque, and a lot of her friends and her family were out there on Sunday for the birthday party. But her actual birthday was yesterday. Barbara was born in Regina in 1925, moved to Fort Erie, moved to Simcoe, and then finally in 1962 moved to Amherstburg. She worked at Amherst Quarries, she worked at SKD. She's a former treasurer of Christ Anglican Church, where she still attends services with Reverend Lisa Poltney. You can see some of the photos from the party on our social media. She's a former Senior Citizen of the Year. She won the Gertie Kilgallen Senior Citizen of the Year award back in 1997. And she remembered me coming in taking her picture. So, we got full coverage of that in this week's RTT. And a lot of you have really taken to the photos I put on social media. And once again, happy birthday, Barbara, if you're listening. The Festival of Hawks was out at Holiday Beach Conservation Area. That's usually a popular event. It's co-presented by the Essex Region Conservation Authority and the Holiday Beach Migration Observatory. They team up. They do various different bird watching demonstrations, bird banding. You can go up on the tower and get a look at what they do and how they track the various birds and that fly overhead. It's obviously Holiday Beach, as we know, is a hot spot for birding, and a lot of the folks out there gave a up-close and personal demonstration. If you're interested, you can just go out to the tower and find out what they're up to. This is prime birding season. Again, this will continue usually through the fall months, but the Festival of Hawks was last Saturday and Sunday out at Holiday Beach Conservation Area. They even had an owl prowl. And we got the story again in this week's RTT, so make sure you pick up your copy and find out what it's all about. And I believe it's on page 5 of this week's issue of the Rivertown Times. And they had some good crowds out there, so find out what it's all about. And that's not the only Holiday Beach-related story in this week's RTT. The Essex Region Conservation Authority, their board of directors met last Thursday night, and they voted unanimously to put a halt on the disc golf plans. I know Chair Molly Allaire, she's, of course, an Amherstburg town councillor. She had hoped to she thought it would be another great amenity for the park, but a lot of folks were very concerned about it. Some were quite upset, actually. And public outcry was relayed at a public meeting back in May at the Libro Center. There was a lot of upset folks at that meeting. And but in fairness, you had people there defending disc golf. But there was an overwhelming sense of not going ahead with it, that there's a lot of people in opposition to it. And IRCA, they listened, and they're going to put a stop to it out at Holiday Beach. They're still looking for ways to get more people into the park, and they're looking for more amenities to add. But they're going to be working with some of the user groups, and they're going to try to get more people into Holiday Beach Conservation Area. And I spoke with Molly on the weekend. She's a little bit heartbroken. She'd hoped that it would go ahead, but she also respects public opinion, and she will abide by the decision and respect the decision. Again, there's more coverage in this week's issue of the Rivertown Times. The Essex County Accessibility Advisory Committee presented Fest for All. It's an accessibility event. Last year was in Colchester, but this year was brought to Amherstburg. It was at the Libro Center. It was the Outdoor Accessibility Fest for All, but they had some events inside. You'll see a picture of sledge hockey in the RTT this week and online. We also put some photos online of some of the outdoor activities. There were quite a number of vendors, I believe, about 50 in total, kind of circled the roundabout right in front of the building. There was a special Miracle League baseball game. There was some outdoor exercise classes and lots more. So it was a good event. Again, it was put on by the Essex County Accessibility Advisory Committee. I know Warden Hilda McDonald was there. Mayor Michael Prue was there. They had mayors from across the county came out. And just the ones I saw, I know Sherry Bondi from Essex was there. Dennis Rogers came in from Kingsville. And there were some others across the region. Crystal Malash was in from LaSalle. And it was a well-attended event. A lot of the Essex County municipalities were represented there. Again, it was it was a well-attended event. A lot of different vendors around the community were there, along the region were there, and we have coverage in this week's Rivertown Times in print and online, so make sure you check this week's paper. And another story we're kind of following up on is the Park House Museum. A few weeks ago, we did a story on the fact they were looking for donations. They were looking for assistance to repair the pensioners' cottage. And somebody read our story and stepped up. The Stephen P. Copeland Foundation. They made a donation of $10,000 to the Park House and to the renovation of the pensioners' cottage. According to curator Kat Bizzari, we should be seeing work starting in October. Again, they're still going to be open for this weekend's Uncommon Festival, but work should be getting underway later this fall, probably looking like October, as I said, getting the pensioners' cottage renovated. And again, the original estimate was $9,000. They collected $2,000 just through various different fundraising activities like barbecues, tinware sales. They had a GoFundMe account. They have just other private donations. But again, the Stephen P. Copeland Foundation stepped up, donated $10,000 based on what they saw in their Rivertown Times in the August 20th edition. So that work's going to go ahead later this fall, but I'm sure the Park House still appreciates donations. They're a small museum, as are most of our museums here in Amherstburg, and they appreciate any and all donations that come their way. And again, check the story out on page 3 of this week's edition of the Rivertown Times and on our website. Turning our attention to sports. I was at Shooter's Roadhouse Saturday night. The Fighting Island Boxing Club was busy. They had about 9 bouts plus 2 demonstration bouts. In the main event, Curtis Rialba of Amherstburg, the national champion, he won a unanimous decision over the silver medalist from the national championships. And that capped off a successful evening of fights. Results may not have gone the way some of the fighters would have wanted to, but as Joe LeBlanc, the owner and president of Fighting Island Boxing Club, mentioned to me, it really matters when you get to the provincials and to the nationals. Events like these club shows are more of a developmental shows, and even if you learn something while you're in the ring, regardless of the result, it's a win for you. So it turned out it was a good night all around. You had a nice crowd at Shooters, and again, the Fighting Island Boxing Club stays very active in our community. They train out of the Amherstburg Community Hub. They have space in there. They have a ring set up, and all their fighters head there and participate. And it's usually about Monday through Thursdays during the week. And in the evenings, they stay busy, and a lot of their skills were shown at the Battle in the Burg, as they called it, on Saturday night out at Shooters. So, again, great job. And special mention to Joe LeBlanc. He was recognized by the boxing community, given a special title belt. And he more than deserves it. He's spent over 40 years working with young people and even some older folks and teaching them boxing skills and just really doing a lot for our community. And congratulations to Joe on your award from the local boxing community. Again, very well deserved. The Ruck to Remember, another event came to town last week. It was last Thursday. Made a stop at Royal Canadian Legion, Fort Malden, Branch 157. Our Legion was excited to have them there. They passed through the area. The Ruckers, and what that is, they carry about 50-pound rucksacks on their back as they walk through the community. They were joined by firefighters, council members, police officers, cadets, and more as they passed through Amherstburg as they stopped at the Legion for a chicken dinner. And then they went on their way. Windsor, LaSalle, Kingsville, Essex, and other stops. I believe Cottam was on the list as well. I apologize if I'm mistaken, and they headed to Chatham. Anyways, the story is on page 11 of this week's issue of the Rivertown Times. Make sure you check that out. Again, pick up your copy of the RTT. You can see some photos, and the photos are also posted to our social media, so you get to see even more photos there. So make sure you pick up the RTT and find out more about Ruck to Remember, because I'm sure they still appreciate the help. Proceeds go to help veterans who are homeless or nearing homelessness. Drawn Together, a local art exhibit, was launched last Sunday afternoon at the O, and the O, of course, is in Hotel Story on Murray Street. And it involved 12 local artists. They unveiled their work, and it all kind of came together, so to speak, drawn together. That's the latest exhibit of the local art collective arts project. And so we got more coverage in this week's issue of the RTT, and that's on page 6. So make sure you check it out. We got a full story there, and it's also on our website. And so make sure you check everything out. And in this week's issue of the Rivertown Times, and I'm sure they're already planning some more exhibits to be held at the O. I know they appreciate being able to use the space. Turning to the weekend, we got a very busy weekend. I'll just touch on a few of the things that are coming up. Of course, the Amherstburg Uncommon Festival returns to the downtown streets Friday through Sunday. So make sure you check that out. It's Harry Potter, steampunk, and more. A whole lot of activities heading down to their local streets. For a full list of events, go to visitamherstburg.ca/uncommon. Again, that's the town's tourism website, visitamherstburg.ca/uncommon. I know we'll be down there. That's part of our very busy weekend. I know on Saturday night, the Amherstburg Freedom Museum presents their 50th anniversary gala. That's up at the Komodo Club in Windsor. The McGregor Mug Run hits the streets of course, McGregor on Saturday afternoon. I believe the race itself starts at 3. The street closures start at 2. So be prepared for that if you're heading it through McGregor on Saturday afternoon. And a beer festival follows at Coan Park. Be aware this is the final McGregor Mug Run. So if you enjoy it, make sure you take part in it. And so make sure and support some worthy causes in the area. Friday night, Father Donato, who was instrumental in the Hope of St. Joseph Shelter, he sadly passed away earlier this year, but he's going to be honored with a Mass Friday night, again at 6:30 at St. John the Baptist Church, with a reception at Sutton Funeral Home to follow. You might remember the large yard sale that was held at the home of Mary and Mark Beneteau. They did that all for the Hope of St. Joseph Shelter, led by Father Donato. The shelter is still going, but as I said, Father Donato unfortunately passed away, but he'll be remembered Friday night at a special Mass. Saturday is Legion Week, or the start thereof of Legion Week, so there'll be a ceremony down at the Cenotaph on Saturday morning, and there'll also be some presentations to follow back at the Legion. So make sure you, if you see that happening, make sure you stop and check it out. And that's just part of what's happening on this weekend. Again, the Admirals start their home opener on Saturday. They actually start their season tonight in Wheatley. The North Star Wolves begin their football season Friday night at 5 at the Libro Center against Catholic Central. And that's just some of the stuff we'll be running around at and keeping busy on for next week's issue of the Rivertown Times. And that about wraps it up for me. And again, Laura will be back next week. She's enjoying having some fun in the sun out in Las Vegas. And what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And so I'm not sure if I'll have any more details on how her celebrations went. But at any rate, I'll be back on the airwaves with Laura back here at CKBG 107.9 The Berg next week. A special shout out to Louise and Ashley, our drivers, for driving around the community and delivering our papers to stores and newspaper boxes. And again, I'll be back on the airwaves with Laura next week at 12 noon and the replay at 4:30 p.m. Take care and see you next week.